Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
It is 5:31. I will call to order this meeting of the Board of Public Works for the City of Fitchburg on February 3rd, 2025. First item of business is the call to order here, and I will just note that we have our full membership tonight. Dave Wilborn is here, Kim Lobdell is here, Dave Herbst and Don Gutkowski are remote. Next item, public appearances for non-agenda items. I don't believe we've got anybody in chambers or online that wants to speak on a non-agenda item, so we'll move along. I will entertain a motion to approve the January 29th meeting minutes.
I so move we approve January 29th meeting minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Don. Okay. Do we have any discussion, any addenda, any changes that need to happen here? No? If not, I will go ahead and call the vote. All in favor of approving the January 29th meeting, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Moving on, we will have the report from the Director of Public Works, Mr. Tim Volker, PE.
Thank you. Just one follow-up item from our meeting last week, Monday, January 27th, 2025. A question was just asked regarding what our streets team does when it's not snowing out. So followed up with Mark Hodel, our street supervisor, maintenance supervisor, just to get a little bit more detail. And, you know, there's a lot of activity going on, even though it's not snowing or the icy conditions out there. So, you know, our streets team are performing tree trimming throughout the city, composting at our public works facility off Fish Hatchery Road, street sign maintenance throughout the city, fixing bus shelters, maintaining equipment, shop maintenance, installing traffic control requests by our engineering department, picking up Christmas trees, putting up and taking down holiday decorations, picking up litter, tarring manholes, and if the weather is above freezing, we're able to fill potholes, street sweep, and also do some asphalt patching. And then not much activity has happened with updates for projects. One of the projects that we did have an update on was our Sain Road reconstruction project. For phase 2 construction award was awarded at last week's council meeting on Tuesday. Then also our engineering inspection was also awarded there. And then also the intergovernmental agreement with Dane County was awarded for that project also. Then our streets resurfacing, we have the advertisement dates of February 14th and 21st for our 2025 street resurfacing project. So that'll be advertised February 14th and the 21st of this month, and looking to open bids on February 28th. So we'll look to kind of award our 2025 street resurfacing project at the end of March 2025. And with that, does anyone have any questions?
None for me.
I've got a couple. At the last TTC meeting, Ross gave us a high-level overview of the streets that are going to be resurfaced this year. The official list is not yet up on our website. When will that happen?
Once the drawings are finalized, so within the next week or two, prior to the advertisement.
Okay. And then one other thing I was wondering, could we, I don't know how much trouble this would be to get a GIS map that's got the PACER ratings for all the streets in the city, and then as we do the resurfacing, maybe make another layer that people, so you can put on and see by year which streets were done?
We have that internally. I don't know if it's been made available publicly. So yes, we have been tracking that internally. So I'll talk to Ross or Zach and see if that's something we can make public. It may be already a layer available publicly. I would have to take
I poked around this weekend and I didn't find it.
Okay. I'll have to take a closer look at that, but we do have all that info internally.
I met with a constituent over the weekend, and he was wondering specifically about the stretch of Lacey between Fish Hatchery Road and Seminole.
Yes, so that road, we were going to do that this year. However, with Sain Phase 2 and 3 under construction on the east side of town, and then Fitch-Rona on the west side of town, to also have Lacey shut down east-west is not a good idea. So we're looking to either do that in 2026 or 2027, depending on kind of the other roadway reconstruction projects throughout the city. So I did receive an email also about that segment and responded to the resident this morning. So it may have been the same person.
Probably. Anything else for Tim? Nope. Okay, let's move on to the agenda proper here. Item 5A, I'm looking for a motion to approve resolution R1925, acceptance of the McKee Farm Park Shelter exterior renovation bid.
I will recommend to move approval of resolution R1925.
Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
Sounds like Dave.
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay. Is this Scott going to walk us through this, or Tim, do you want to take care of it?
Yeah, I'll give the introduction, and Scott's available for any questions you may have. So Resolution R19-25 is for the McKee Farms Park Shelter. It's for exterior renovation project, which was included in the 2024 CIP. The exterior wood siding of this shelter needs replacement. Additional items included in this project include selective demolition, rough carpentry, engineered wood siding and trim replacement, metal flashing, painting, electrical, and related miscellaneous items and work. This project was publicly bid through Quest CDN, along with being advertised in the Wisconsin State Journal on December 13th, 2024 and January 3rd, 2025. There was only one bidder for this project, with a base bid of $120,397.89, which was well under the engineering estimation of $172,000. Staff is recommending going with this one bid from D&H Royal Construction LLC at a not-to-exceed price of $120,397.89, along with a 10% contingency of $12,039.11 for a total cost of $132,437. In discussion with the Finance Department, there are currently dollars available in the CIP project for the future replacement fund that could be utilized for the overage, with the understanding that the replacement of the next shelter would be delayed by 1 year. So we're looking for approval for the McKee Farms Park Shelter renovation work as provided by D&H Royal Construction LLC at a not-to-exceed price of $132,000 $437.
Questions for Tim? Go ahead, Kim.
So if it is so far under the engineer's estimate, how come we need more money?
I'll have Scott explain that.
Okay.
Because the budget for this project was under, what was I think the budget for the project was $125,000 originally in the CIP. So we do need additional dollars in order to supplement the current budget allotment for the project in the CIP.
So did you add things to the project to make it go over, or was it just a cost increase from when the time we put the estimate together for the CIP compared to what the actual costs were? I mean, it's usually, it seems that, go ahead.
The CIP was our best educated guess. The budget amount that we put in the CIP was the best, with the best knowledge that we had of what it would cost. If that helps.
Did you do plans? I mean, you usually, I mean, you have to do something when you do a budget, but usually as you do plans, you'll update the cost ahead of time so you would know that it was going to be, I mean, but this one's lower, so that's, but it's lower than the engineer's estimate, but higher than the budget.
Right. Well, like I say, when we budgeted the project, we budgeted $125,000, and you know, maybe our budget estimate was it was actually pretty close, but certainly underneath the engineering estimate.
So who did the engineering estimate?
That was with our consultant that did that for us.
So Scott, was this like a timing issue? Because if the engineer estimate had been done prior to the adoption of the most recent CIP, presumably the estimate would have been updated within the CIP.
That's correct. So when we put the CIP together, which was a couple years ago, that's what our estimate was. But with the delay in getting the project bid and on schedule, it certainly, the cost went up, and then the 172 was the most recent budget estimate by the engineer.
So have you worked with this contractor previously? It says they are not new, but when you read the, you know, the justification or whatever, it says that you checked references and reviewed, like maybe you had not worked personally with them.
I would defer to Tim. I know the engineering department did do the reference checks on this contractor, and they were satisfied with the reference check. I have not worked with this group before, no.
Yeah, Zach Laundry, our right-of-way engineer, did the reference checks for the contractor, and you know, didn't find anything that would be alarming for us not to award.
But it's when it says, is the vendor new, and it says no, so somebody must have worked with them before.
Yeah, that the company could have did prior work with the city. However, everyone currently on staff has not worked with them, so we still followed up with a reference, but our financial system does have them listed in there.
Okay.
So it says, with the understanding that the replacement of the next shelter would be delayed 1 year. What shelter are we talking about? Do we know that yet?
We do not know that yet. And it's basically, I think we put maybe $25,000 or $30,000 a year in the CIP. So it does take a couple of years to accumulate enough dollars in order to renovate a shelter. So it'll just delay that next shelter, which we haven't identified yet, for another year.
I have one question. What about maintenance on these shelters? For the wood to deteriorate so bad, are we backing off and not doing enough maintenance on it to keep them up? I'm talking about.
Well, and actually, it wasn't.
Go ahead.
Actually, it wasn't too long ago that we actually renovated the shelter, which included we put in some forced air conditioning along with painting the exterior of the shelter. But with the wood, it's just getting to the point now where it's just totally, rotting away. So we do need, and that's why we're looking to do it with the smart siding, just because of the longevity of the smart siding. But we have done maintenance on the shelter building itself in the past.
So Scott, is that the original wood that's on there right now from 1997 or whatever?
It is. It is. It
Okay.
is. It is.
Is that, I mean, that's not a exceedingly long lifespan for siding, but it's not exceedingly short either, is it?
Yeah. What is that? 30 years?
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good life expectancy.
Yeah, Dave.
Scott, some of this you mentioned, this smart siding, be like Georgia Pacific or whatever. Do you have any? There's a lot of different, say, grades of that. Are you able to look, approve what they're planning to use? I'm expecting something like this product. Like if you buy it from Georgia Pacific, you're getting like a 30-year warranty on it. Are you able? Does Parks or Board of Public Works have the ability to approve, what they're going to use?
That was included in the specifications for the project. And certainly you're right, Dave, that 30 to 40 year life expectancy. This is similar to the material that we've used at other shelter facilities when we've constructed them originally and then renovated them.
I had a question on the $19,000. If 125 was budgeted and we need 132, why do we need an extra 19,000 instead of 7,400?
There was engineering costs that put together the bid for us, the engineering.
I just had a couple questions. You mentioned for the next shelter that we're delaying. Are we going to do an engineer's estimate before we submit the CIP for that?
Yes, we would try to do that. That's for sure.
And then in line with the discussion for the wood siding, have we looked at the cost benefit or weighing that out with versus put steel on these structures in the long run? I know they're expensive initially, but if we're going to get a whole lot more life, there's got to be a cost benefit calculation that says it's worth it or it's not.
Right. I agree, but certainly with the budget numbers that we did have, we didn't have the dollars to do some kind of a steel siding or whatever it might be.
Not for this one. I'm not saying put steel
in
for
the
this one.
future.
I'm worried about the future ones now. If we do a cost benefit and steel is going to be better for us long run, then let's start putting that in the budget.
Yep.
And then if you're going to do an engineer estimate, then you won't have this discussion after the fact saying let's shift stuff.
That's a good point. Well taken.
And just for clarification, Scott, can you talk a little bit about the timing? Like, the CIP is a 10-year document, so something could be put into the CIP as many as 10 years before we expect it to actually, the work to get done. And the dollar amount that's in there will presumably get updated every couple of years, and then hopefully by the time it's in the front half of the CIP or the front quarter of the CIP, it should get updated every year. But you don't have an actual engineer's estimate at that point from the actual contracted vendor that's going to do that, right? So we could run into this on a regular basis where you think, yeah, it's probably going to be 150. Then you hire somebody and they say, no, it's going to be 200. And somebody comes in at 175, we still need the budget amendment.
Yeah, that's how it would, and actually with this project, it did start out, I think in 2023 as $75,000. And we've been trying to increase that CIP, as you mentioned, every year. But the cost of things continue to go up. And certainly I take your point that we should try and get a better estimate of what the cost would be, before we go out to bid or put it in the CIP.
All right.
Is, just for my education, is the CIP for these type of projects put together based on previous lettings that you had? And then do you put a inflationary factor to it?
Like I mentioned, yeah, we started at 75 and then we did raise it to 125. So we do try to put a inflationary amount in the budget. It's just, it's really hard, short of hiring, an engineer to come in and give us an actual estimate, which we could potentially do. But at the end of the day, I guess, I think we're getting a good price here with the engineering estimate of 172, and we're getting it for, all in for 132. I think we're doing pretty good regarding getting a decent price.
Yeah, I don't disagree. You might be getting a decent price. It's just, how are you going to forecast that for future? I hate to be in this endless cycle of waiting after the fact and then do a bid, and then you find out we know steel or wood has been going up significantly higher, that we could have updated it earlier. But
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that what you see in the CIP is a placeholder value that is hopefully in the right ballpark, but short of hiring a professional to do a detailed analysis, it's always going to be an estimate that might be high or it might be low.
I appreciate that. That's exactly right.
But it would be a lot nicer if we got more than one person to bid it.
Yes.
That's what I don't like about it.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a good point. From previous experience, Scott and or Tim, how many bidders would you have expected? And I would have thought, sometimes we say, let's put this out for bid in the off season in hopes that everybody's not busy and more people will bite. And in this instance, we only had the one respondent. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I don't know if Tim would have, it's maybe I don't know, maybe there's not bidders that do this type of work. I wouldn't really know why only one bidder bid.
Yeah, it's nice to get 3 bids. That way you have a comparison. In this particular instance, I think with the estimate that Scott's consultant had, coming in under, there's a comfort that, the price is good, even though we did receive one. Why only one? The workload out there, they could be busy. I'm not quite sure that the timing looks like it was kind of bid over the holidays, advertised the 13th and the 3rd. So that could have maybe have impacted it with Christmas and the New Year's in there. With staff taking vacations, that companies may not have had the time to put together a bid. So
It doesn't sound like either of you are shocked that we only got one bid, though. So it's not like this is unheard of.
We're thankful. We're thankful, Bill. We're thankful.
Right. Okay.
Get the work done.
Bill, I would just add, the contractors that can do this type of remodeling, they're incredibly busy, and I think they just choose. They say we don't want to do government work. It's too painful for us.
Yeah.
Red tape, yeah.
Well, Scott's reputation precedes him.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All right, I'll call. the vote.
Not again for this project, because we'll vote on it, but I just, maybe Tim, we can talk more if you want. And Scott, again, I passed life. If I had a planning study that was 20 years out and I hit it 50%, cool. 6-year projects, when I was 1 year out, if I didn't hit it within 10%, I wasn't getting federal money. I was getting pounded. So I had to put engineering up front to make sure my estimates were in the ballpark, at least within that 10%. So it might behoove us to put the money in up front, however pot of money you get it, and try to shore up these estimates a bit better.
I will note, though, that the estimate was 125, and the bid came in at 120, and with the 10% contingency, we're doing 132. So this was within the 10% that you're talking about.
But if that also included
The
the
engineering
engineering
estimate was
fees, wasn't
170.
in there, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. All right.
No more.
Okay,
No more questions?
appreciate the conversation.
All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R1925 signify by saying aye.
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 It is unanimous. Moving on to 5B, I'm looking for a motion to approve Resolution R2025, acceptance of the McGaw Park pickleball court bids.
I'll move that we approve Resolution R20-25.
I'll second it.
Okay. Tim, is this you again?
Yeah, I can do the introduction and then Scott can answer any particular questions regarding the resolution. So Resolution R20-25 is acceptance of the McGaw Park pickleball court bids. The McGaw Park pickleball courts expansion project and McGaw Lights project were included in the 2024 budget at $200,000 and $210,000 respectively. And these two amounts are expected to be carried over into 2025. An additional $50,000 was budgeted in 2025 for shade structures at the pickleball courts. The total pickleball court budget of $460,000 includes all new amenities at a community park and are therefore eligible for use of park fee funding. Items included in the expansion are 4 new pickleball courts and related fencing and gates, shade structure footings, expansion of cement patio, windscreening, court lighting bases, bicycle racks, and their installation. This project also included alternative bids for storm sewer system work, shade structures, and court lighting. Staff is recommending accepting the base bid along with alternatives for the shade structures and storm sewer system improvement work. This project was publicly bid on Quest CDN along with the Wisconsin State Journal on December 13th, 2024 and January 3rd, 2025. City received a total of 6 bids and is recommending the lowest bid provided by Will Surge Electric Incorporated with the base bid of $304,427.15. Staff is also recommending the acceptance of 2 alternatives, including the shade structures and the storm sewer system work, for a not-to-exceed price of $304,428, plus storm sewer work and shade structure work at $62,947, plus a $25,000 contingency for a total amount of $392,375. We're looking for approval from the Common Council for the McGaw Park pickleball court expansion bid provided by Will Surge Electric Incorporated at a not-to-exceed price of $392,375.
Questions for Tim and or Scott?
I have a question. Why did you decide not to do the court lighting? Why did you do it? You know, there were 3 alternates, the storm sewer, the shade structures, and the court lighting. You're recommending the storm sewer and the shade structures, but not the court lighting. Is that correct?
No, it's on there.
That is correct. That would have put us over our allotted budget.
So they just won't be operational once it's dark, is that correct?
There won't be any light fixtures or lights at the court. We have all the infrastructure and footings included in the base bid, but at this point, we won't be able to install the light structures themselves.
Do the existing courts have lighting?
They do not.
How much was the bid for the lighting? The alternate you're not accepting?
An extra
100, the low, for
143.
the low, 143,710, yeah.
And Scott, where are these courts going to be in relation to the existing ones?
They'll be to the east. There'll be an expansion of the existing patio there. And then actually the storm sewer work, if you're familiar with the site, there's a large ditch that runs north and south to the east. That's where the stormwater work is going to happen, where they'll put some pipe in and then actually put earth over the top. So we'll have a little bit more flat space and area to provide green space for the pickleball users.
The light footings that are being put in, is that going to be for the entire, like the existing court
Yes.
as well as the new ones?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's correct. Yep. Yep.
So it's gonna be there down the road if we put the lighting in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's all ready to go.
But that will require new dollars to be allocated in the CIP because we're using up our lighting budget just for the courts.
Correct. Well, and the infrastructure for the lights, it's all
Right.
kind of part, all rolled into it.
Go ahead, Dave.
Can you explain the storm sewer again? I'm not quite understanding that. Why we need storm, the land is right there, right? The land is there now and we don't have a drainage issue. Could you explain that? I didn't quite follow that.
Well, the additional courts that'll go to the east, it'll go right to where that drainage system begins. So it'll be a big drain, and actually by putting in the pipe that'll go north and south and then filling it in, we're going to have additional green space to the east, which will really be a nice addition to that area. So when you put the new courts in, it's going to really get very close to that stormwater facility ditch, if you would.
Second thing, like we don't have any tennis courts that have shade structures. What's so special about pickleball players? They have to have shade structures. We have a shelter not that far away. I'm a little flummoxed, that everything has to be done. You're going to play a game, you're playing in the sun, you get done, you can go over in the shelter that we have there. Why we have to have shade shelters, these are mostly adults. I'm just, I don't think it's necessary, but I know I'm not going to win this.
Well, and generally, Dave, the pickleball community is the retired community, and they'll be there during the day, and it will be hot, so it's nice to provide some additional shade for them in the patio area.
Is the ultimate game plan for pickleball to just make McGaw the pickleball mecca of Fitchburg? Okay.
That's a good point. And really our McKee, with the big investment we made at McKee for the tennis courts, that's going to be our tennis court facilities within our park system. And you're correct, the McGaw courts will be the designated pickleball courts within our park system and community. That's exactly correct.
Okay. And then there's a lot of growth and development going on around there. Are there restrictions to McGaw once that gets all built out? Are they gonna object to the lights or?
Well, and that's a fair question, and really, with the current softball lights there, we're pretty comfortable that the community is understanding that this is kind of our athletic facility complex, and actually the lights have come so they're so advanced that they can be directed right down on the court, and no dark sky lights and things like that, so there really won't be any splash of light, if you would. Certainly there's lights along the path that gives a little bit of splash of lighting, but these court lightings, if it does happen, they'll just show right on the playing surface of the courts.
And then my recommendation was kind of in lines where Dave was bringing it. Can we amend this instead of putting shade structures in, plant some trees around there, and then they can go and drink their water around, and you'll have naturally green stuff and nothing to maintain?
Well,
is that anyone willing to have that as an amendment to this?
What are these shade structures going to be made out of, too? Is it going to be a canvas area, or are we going to go out and build wood?
Yep. It's a fabric similar to what we have at the splash pad. We've got 5 fabric shade cantilever shade structures there, and actually we have one at the inclusive playground, so it'll be similar to those shade structures.
And all the seating is on the north side, right? So the wind protection that's built into the courts can provide some amount of shade.
It could. I think from my perspective, the investment of the shade structures is really, we talk about cost benefit and things like that. I think it's a wise and sound investment for this facility. As I mentioned, it's generally it's our older residents that are playing there, and they play during the day and it gets warm. So the shade structures, I would even say that that's a nice safety feature for the facility. I'd be real hesitant to remove the shade structures, but that's up to you guys. But that would be my thought on it.
What's the difference between, the pricing of the lighting that we're not putting up versus the shades that we're going to put up?
A lot. $25,000 is the shade structures. What'd you say, 140 or something for the light? Yeah, so you're still at 115. Because I also sort of tend to agree with Dave and Don that I guess I don't really think you should treat pickleball players different than tennis players. If it's too hot for them to play, then they should probably stay home. Or like you said, you got the shelter there. They can just go stand under the shelter. There are a lot of younger people that play pickleball too, and there's different times of the day. I don't know, is this not on a reserve system? It's on a first come, first serve system? So it
is on a reserve system.
It is on a reserve system. So, find times earlier in the morning or later at night if you don't like the heat. But then again, when you look as the big scheme of the picture, $25,000 isn't a ton of money if it's going to provide a lot. But, how many trees can you get for $25,000? Would that provide shade near the facility and a more environmentally sensitive or environmentally pleasing alternative to those?
Put in some fast-growing soft pines or soft maple, they grow like crazy.
Well, and at the end of the day, you don't want to have leaves and things get onto the courts. To be honest with you, it's a maintenance issue. I guess I shared my thoughts and my reasons, I guess.
Scott, when people are sitting under those shade shelters, how far away from the courts are they? I presume this is for spectating, right? And if we put a tree in between the court and the spectators, we're going to have to put some distance in there so the roots don't wreak havoc on the the court. I don't know what that distance is, but is that, part of the reason?
Well, if you're familiar with the pickleball courts, we've got the existing ones and a little bit of a patio. So what we're going to do is we're going to expand the patio and then put the additional courts to the east, and then the shade structures will be inside that concrete patio. So it'd be difficult to plant trees in that area. The storm water work to the east is really going to provide some additional space that there could be some additional trees planted. That's for sure.
I would guess they would be more for the players than spectators. I don't know if they get a lot of spectators to go out watch. It's more for just the people that are playing or the people that are waiting to play next, I guess.
Yeah, those were the spectators. Yeah, right. Exactly.
I'm 65, and last summer I was playing pickleball. It was 95 degrees out, and it was hot. We got done. We walked under a tree, drank a bottle of water, and went home. I'm sorry. You're if you're playing in the heat, it's 80 yards over to we have a nice shelter. Put something you have to maintain. This would be something I'd say. How about the pickleball, society or what the pickleball mafia that we have, they're great people. How about they fund this? I'm just, we have other things, we have other things I think that we could do, it'd be a nice amenity. How about they ante up a little bit,
Scott, can you comment on how much revenue the existing pickleball courts generate on an annual basis?
I couldn't, but I could certainly get that for you, Bill.
Just like off the top of your head, are we talking hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands?
Maybe 10,000, 10 to 12,000 potentially.
Okay.
Yeah, that money should be set aside for future maintenance, though. You have to keep that in mind too. This is park dedication now, but when they have to be replaced.
I like that idea. I like all the revenue that's generated with the parks to stay in the parks, but it goes into the general fund, as you know, Dave. So
I know.
I'd love to keep it all in the parks, to be honest with you.
Yeah. See what I can do.
Thank you.
So Scott, after all is said and done, can you comment on the total value of the pickleball courts, and then what would a reasonable replacement annual amount be for that? Is that like 1% of the total cost, or more than that? I don't know.
Well, yeah, and actually we do have that included in our CIP now, Bill. We did that for the McKee tennis courts, and we are going to do it for the pickleball courts. It's in the range of $25,000 a year, with a life expectancy of, in that 30 to 40 year life expectancy. So we are beginning to start to put those dollars away annually to, as you mentioned, to replace them when it's time to be replaced.
Scott, are all these dollars for everything? These are all parkland dedication fees, am I correct?
This is a community park, yep. So these are dollars that have been collected, fee in lieu of parkland dedication, and generally in the neighborhood there. Yep. So these are all park improvement dollars.
Anything further?
I kind of agree with Dave. I don't know why we have to put up the shade things when we got a shelter just a little bit farther away.
I've heard a lot of talk about not having the shade structures, but I have yet to hear anybody put forth an amendment.
I put forth an amendment to eliminate the shade structures in this.
I'll second it.
Second that.
Any further discussion on shade structures? Scott, do you want to put any other commentary in here?
Just what I stated before. I think for the small investment, there's a lot of return on investment for the potential customers that are going to be using the pickleball courts.
Are you expecting that we're going to have a lot of tournament action here?
Yep. We're trying to actually working with CETA to have regional. Yep, exactly, regional. And that's a big reason we went from 8 to 4. So we are trying to generate some tourism dollars and those kinds of things. So yes, that's the thought.
One shade structure wouldn't be enough if you have a tournament and you have all kinds of people there. Wouldn't be enough anyway. I'm sorry. Sorry to be the devil's advocate.
Is there a diagram that would show what this would look like that we can see before we vote on it? I don't know what or how many square feet of shade are we talking about?
Oh boy. Yeah, I
maybe 15 by 15, Bill. Would be my guess. Based on the splash pad and the inclusive playground, that neighborhood.
All right. Well,
300 square feet.
I'll call the vote on the amendment. All in favor of removal of the shade structures signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay.
And maybe just an additional within the base bid is the foundation for the shade structures.
So they could be added at a later time if it got to be an issue and there was other funding available.
Certainly. The infrastructure will be there, which is important, because then they would just, fasten them on the footings.
I would just add, having spent much time at tournaments, mostly baseball and softball and soccer, as my children grew up, people and families bringing their own canopies to these things to, in the summer it's going to be hot. You go read Little League field, they put them out right up over the bleachers and I know it'd be nice. I would just feel better if it's not a necessity. If the support group wanted to put one in, I'd like that better. But we have other things coming up, that we use this money for.
I think it's a good idea that could be potentially for the pickleball advocates to put a little skin in the game, if you would.
Yeah, that's my feeling. It'd be nice to have, but yeah, I said enough.
Kim?
Likewise.
Oh, okay. All right. So that amendment passed.
One final question, Scott, is if our ultimate game plan is to light these up, and you got an electrical contractor coming in here, do you have the base infrastructure that we can just light them up once we get poles? Okay.
Well, we got to pull the wire and, put it in the panel and all that, the footings and all that infrastructure is going to be there. So that's kind of was the thought to include that in the base bid. So.
Okay. So you got conduit. They're just
conduits there.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Okay, the amendment passed, so I will now call the vote on the resolution as amended. All in favor of resolution R 2025 as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 All right, that is unanimous. Moving on to 5C. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution R2325, accepting an agreement for engineering services for the Cyene Interceptor, Phase 2.
I will move approval of resolution number R2325.
Second.
Second by Don. Take it away, Tim.
The capital improvement plan includes design and construction of an extension of the Cyene Interceptor. The Public Works Department issued a request for proposal for engineering services for the Cyene Interceptor expansion Phase 2. The RFP was advertised by legal notice in the Wisconsin State Journal on December 17th, 2024 and December 24th, 2024, and posted on questcdn.com. On January 8th, 2025 at 4 p.m., 2 proposals were received for these services. A quality-based selection process was utilized to review the proposals. Vierbecker was determined to be the best qualified to perform these services. We're looking for approval from council for the agreement for engineering services with Vierbecker in the total amount of $198,345. That includes a 5% contingency. And with that, does anyone have any questions?
Dave.
Two questions, Tim. The first, you have a sense how deep this one's going to be? Is this 20 feet down? Is it 15 feet?
Yeah,
I don't expect you. Okay, go ahead.
About 20 feet.
Okay. And the second, will this be paid for by area-wide assessment for the Hartung property that's being developed?
Yeah, there would be a charge report that would charge the adjoining properties.
Thank you.
Tim, there were 2 bids, and they were off by nearly a factor of 2, but only 5% contingency in this instead of 10 is what we normally see.
Yes, there was a big discrepancy in the cost. A lot of that had to do with the amount of hours the high bidder assumed for construction. They assumed, I think it was, and the duration of construction was a lot longer, so we kind of averaged that out between the 2 bidders, and the low bidder still came up lower once you assume the hourly rate for both and kind of the same amount of hours. So, we foresee 5% being sufficient for design.
Okay. Anything else? All right, I'll go ahead and call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R2325, signify by saying aye.
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 It is unanimous. Moving on to 5D, looking for a motion to approve Resolution R3025, amending the 2025 Capital Projects Fund and General Fund budgets for Public Works Limited Term Employment Engineer.
Resolution R3025.
Thank you, Dave. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Tim, what can you tell us?
A special projects engineer limited term employee has been assisting with the police services facility project. Utilizing this LTE is a significantly lower cost than hiring an outside engineering firm to do the same work. The continuation of the LTE position was not included in the original adopted 2025 budget, but there is a desire to continue the position in 2025. An administrative budget amendment was approved by the mayor to authorize 50 hours of service for the first couple months of 2025. A budget amendment approved by council is required to authorize an additional 150 hours of service for the remainder of 2025. Property tax funding within CIP project number 2141 for the facility is proposed to be transferred to the general fund to pay for these additional 150 LTE hours. The Fitchburg Common Council, we're looking for authorization for the Special Projects Engineer LTE for a total of 200 hours in 2025. And we're looking to amend the 2025 Capital Projects Fund and General Fund budgets as shown in the attached staff memo.
Any discussion?
I have a question. Will it be the same LTE, the same person, so they have background, or is it going to be a different person but doing LTE services?
It's the same person, and that's Paul Woodard, who's been helping the city since 2022 with these services.
I think that makes a lot of sense if it's the same person who has continuity through the whole thing and is familiar with Fitchburg. So,
Tim, this has been going on for what, 3 years? Do you anticipate extending and making this an annual LTE need?
No, this LTE is specifically helping with the police services facility project, and then there may be some additional work next year just with the city hall remodel. So once the police move over into their new facility, the city has a CIP project to remodel City Hall, kind of where the police are currently, and that this LTE has been helping kind of put together the budget for that, and I envision that person still helping the city manage that project during design and construction, potentially.
So at least a few more years, you're going to have an LTE, whether it's Paul or not. But any thought to just making it a permanent part-time position?
No, because after the city hall remodel project, the LTE would not be needed then.
Okay.
Any future projects are unknown unknowns. Any other questions? All right, I will go ahead and call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R3025, signify by saying aye.
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 It is unanimous. Okay, moving on to 5E. Looking for a motion to approve Resolution R1825, acceptance of the Tower Hill Park Shelter renovation bids.
I'll move to approve Resolution R1825.
I'll second it.
Okay, and we have one speaker. Patrick, you want to come up to the mic?
There we go. Okay, never know. I would be interested in hearing the presentation, which may bring out some details before I comment on something.
Oh, okay.
I can give the introduction, and then Scott's available for any questions after. The Tower Hill Park Shelter renovation project was included in the 2024 CIP. This bathroom and shelter facility was originally constructed in 1974 and needs updating to include ADA family bathrooms, new asphalt shingles, concrete access from the road, interior floors, doors and hardware, exhaust systems, and plumbing fixtures. This project was publicly bid through Quest CDN along with advertising in the Wisconsin State Journal on December 13th, 2024 and January 3rd, 2025. A total of 3 bidders provided bids, with the lowest responsible bidder being Harmony Construction Management at a base bid price of $332,456. Alternate bids were also received as deducts for a price of $48,277. Staff recommends the base bid minus deducts from Harmony Construction Management for a not to exceed price of $284,179 plus a 10% contingency of $28,417 for a total cost of $312,596. There is sufficient funding available in the TID Closure Excess Increment Fund to further support this one-time project beyond the CIP budgeted amount. We're looking for approval from Common Council for the Tower Hill Park shelter renovation work as provided by Harmony Construction Management at a not-to-exceed price of $312,596 and authorizing an amount of $312,596 from account number 400-5766-264 to pay for this work. So the council would be amending the 2025 TID closure access increment fund budget to increase the transfer to the capital project funds by $26,000. Then looking to also amend the 2025 capital projects fund budget to increase the transfer in from the TID closure fund by $26,000 and use that funding on this project.
Patrick, would you like to speak now?
Okay, then I need to ask a question of some details which will steer my comments. Does this renovation include any electronics, such as to include internet access, security cameras, electronic door locks?
This does not. There is going to be an update of the electrical, but we did not have the dollars available to do the electric door locks and the internet and those kinds of things. Hopefully, we could certainly do that in the future, but currently we don't have the budget dollars in order to make those improvements.
Okay, then my comments would go like this. I'm glad that they are not included. I'm a little surprised that in Public Works here, this board asked more detailed, specific probing questions. I didn't look at your packet, but the Parks Commission packet where this goes on Thursday didn't have anything other than the bid and the dollars and everything, no specifications, designs, diagrams, anything like that. And even your chair asked about, shade structures, and there's nothing, that shows these things. As far as this question about internet access and security cameras and electronic door locks, I can tell you that there are only 2 shelters locations in Fitchburg that have those, and I'm glad it's only 2. Hugel Jamestown was a brand new shelter, and the security cameras and electronic door locks and internet connection were added onto that new building construction without asking, and just went ahead into the building construction anyway. Then the next one was the McKee Farms shelters, which is the shelter itself and the splash pad. And there it was a discussion at the Parks Commission. And I remember Alder Tom Clauder was on the Parks Commission and led the discussion of that. And there was very little interest in adding that onto, well, there was some interest, but little interest in adding it onto the McKee. And then there was direction from the Park Commission to add, as I remember, 1 camera, and that stretched into 1 location of 5 cameras in 1 park instead of 1 camera. So those are there, but there was also clear instructions from the Park Commission about you get no more cameras or security stuff like that until you prove that it's worthwhile, and that was supposed to be with providing any police reports, any and all police reports or uses of the camera, and there have been 0 presented in all that time since McKee shelter cameras were added. At this location here, this shelter has been here for 51 years, and I've never heard of a problem through the Parks Commission. And I think it's a waste of money to add this. I also know that from a diagram that was presented at the Park Commission sometime last year, there was a building footprint. I'm glad to see that the solid brick wall is being reused, but it's a small room enclosed for the Tower Hill shelter. And one thing that was being added, according to that diagram from last year, was a corner closet inside of this very limited space inside of the Tower Hill shelter for some kind of an equipment thing, and it seems to be in my memory that it was going to be something like this. There is a circuit breaker panel in the corner right there, which is just right there right now. You can walk up, you can whatever, reset or flip switches. Never been a problem. If a breaker trips, you can just go reset it. But that was going to be walled off in this closet for storage, and it took away several square feet of limited storage inside of the Tower Hill shelter. And my recollection is it was going to be for this electronics in there. The electronics add extra cost, and I would say, in my judgment, are even less useful than shade structures and pickleball lighting. They're just not needed, and no matter what our Parks Director says, it is not the new normal. It is not the standard. It is not current policy. It is not anything that's been decided anywhere ever to add security cameras into all future shelters. That is not true. Just remember what I said about the McKee shelter. It was that one, that's the end of it until you prove these are worth it. All of us, all of you should know what an internet connection costs per month. And this adds a monthly bill to add this kind of electronics into any future shelter. I don't know what it's costing at McKee and Hugel Jamestown, but those are live internet connections back to City Hall right here, so that the electronic locks can be unlocked and locked, and the cameras can be viewed from here. That's a live internet connection, so those are costly. That's a monthly recurring charge, and by saving the money on that, and don't even allow considering of future security, especially cameras on these shelters, because it's not needed, that saves money.
Thank you for your comment.
Could I address Patrick on that one sec? Patrick, you know, I won't debate it with you, but Jamestown Hegel, we have a water control facility. We have a water metering station there. You know, that's infrastructure, and
That's true.
We need the cameras there to protect that. And second, we've had vandalism there that the cameras have identified who the culprits were, and we were able to apprehend them. So, you know, they are required there at Jamestown Hegel with that water infrastructure we have at that, you know, an open public facility. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, that's true, and that's probably justified being a water facility there.
I might add too that currently the bathroom facilities are open all night long. So what's really nice about the automatic locking is it does provide security and hopefully prevent some vandalism. And I do believe that that's kind of the next. We're certainly doing that at the hub with security systems and door locks and those kinds of things. So I do believe that is the best practice when we are building new facilities and improving the current facilities that we do have, both from an investment and a safety perspective. It does provide some additional security and safety measures for the park user and the facility.
I would agree with the Hugel Jamestown shelter being a water utility, not a pumping station, but a pressure regulating something or other goes on there. That's justified, and it exists anyway there. And the hub being an enclosed building for public use and everything with electronic locks, that's a different situation too. But on plain shelters like Tower Hill and like any other future ones, I don't see it necessary. And if you want to save money, make sure those are not in there.
Thank you for your comments. Kim?
My only comment was when I'm in looking at the deducts was the security lighting, the windows, the metal roofing system, and then the wood ceiling refinish. I can agree with 3 of them. One of my thoughts is I think the exterior security lighting for $8,000 might be something that we want to consider, just to have lighting out there. Can you tell me why that was determined not to be necessary?
We felt it was the staff felt it was necessary, but we needed to try to figure out a way to get it under budget. So that was one of the items that we could easily deduct or include as part of one of the deducts. I might add that the wood ceiling refinishing on the exterior canopy for $4,300, that's something that the staff would recommend. If there is one of the deducts that is accepted, we would recommend that, and then that would actually add to the $26,000 that would be needed from the TIG closure, would add $4,300 and go to $30,300 for the additional dollars needed from the TIG closure project.
Why do you feel that is necessary over the lighting? I mean, what is give it a longer lifespan, or what is the purpose for the wood ceiling refinish in the exterior canopy?
Yep, and it's basically to maintain that structure. I would anticipate that it would be something that we would want to do in the future, and I don't think we could do it for that $4,300. Certainly the lighting is something that we could certainly do in the future, and that price is pretty, I would say either way, that seems to be a good price for the lighting that we could do independent from this project.
A good example, if you go to McGaw Park, I believe that extension, the shelter outside, we redid that inside roof there, Scott, am I correct?
That is correct, yep.
It looks very nice, I would add.
Scott, just looking at the deducts, how many of these things can be done relatively easily and cost efficiently in the future?
Well, I would say, if we look at them, certainly the light poles, which we talked about, the exterior windows are basically, we're trying to get some a light into the center area. That would certainly be more expensive if we do it independently. Substituting this was the case where we did look to try to do a seamless metal roofing system, as we talked about before, for longer life expectancy. But we did have to substitute the asphalt shingles for that due to the budget. So to me, the only logical one would be, do the wood ceiling. Could be a potential deduct that we would do, or the lighting. But certainly the lighting, it could be done in a future CIP. But these other things would certainly be more structural and a little bit harder and more expensive to do, independent of this project.
I would entertain amendment to add the lighting. My biggest concern, based on this, is probably not a high crime area, but we're going to put all this money into this facility. I hate to have it vandalized.
Scott, is there any lighting out there right now that could remain in place or be put back in place after the construction?
There isn't, Bill. There used to be lighting in this area, but it became non-functional, so we had to remove it. There is, a bit of street lighting close there, splash, but within the specific area of the shelter, there is no current lighting.
So is there only a certain amount of money left in the TID closure that we can't go above? Money would have to come from somewhere else other than the TID closure if we added anything back in, or can't the TID closure be expanded even further?
Well, that'd be, I wouldn't know the answer to that. The finance department certainly would know the answer to it. Yeah, I don't know the dollars that are available.
And I'm sorry, Don, did you want to make that amendment?
Yeah, I'm proposing we make an amendment to add the lighting.
And I'll second that.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So I guess then it's really a matter of having finance weigh in on this, right? I mean, if we're talking about exceeding this by another $8,000. Tim, do you have any insight here into
The available funding?
Yeah.
I do not. Finance would have the answer to that.
Okay.
Maybe the $25,000 we saved from the shade structures. No, that's Parks money, sorry.
Well, and I think, contingent on availability of TID funding, I think is something you could put in there.
Don, do you want to add that?
Yeah, that'd be, yeah.
And I'll accept that also.
Okay.
You could add all the other ones contingent on TID funding too. Maybe we could use some more. We could use some of that money. I'm not against that.
Well, so I guess what we could, so
this
maybe,
project has been a.
do we want to put forth an amendment that says we contingent on any additional funding? We'd like to see them in this order: lights, then ceiling, then windows, or something along those lines. Just lights?
I believe that has merit, Bill. Yeah, I believe that has merit.
That'd be.
Let's see. Light, ceiling, roof, windows.
Now, the roof is the big one, right?
Yeah.
So do we have official language on this amendment then?
Yeah, I guess if you guys would determine the priority, then we can. What I'm, not to interject, but I'm hearing the security lighting would be the first one. Wood ceiling second. Exterior windows 3. How do you feel about the metal roof?
Well, the metal roof gives you a longer lifetime,
Absolutely.
Is the only,
consideration there.
What's the difference? What's shingles? It has shingle roof now. You go about 20, 25 years on that, and you go with 30, 40? I guess I'm comfortable with not changing the amendment from the way we had it. I might be agreeable to adding a priority to have the wood ceiling refinished for a second, but right now I think we're probably better off not going with the steel roofing and the windows at this point. That's my opinion, but others can agree or disagree.
We're trying to throw an extra 30,000.
I would agree with you, Kim.
I don't think it'll pass.
Go with those two, yeah.
I'll lose my Lord Voldemort nickname if I'm starting to approve too much spending.
Well, I think that's reasonable, right? It's security, and then the wood. I think that's fair and
Depending on funding.
reasonable.
Don would have to change his amendment.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's change the amendment to include the lighting and the roof.
The wood ceiling.
Ceiling.
And I'll agree to that as.
This year. Yeah. I'm sorry, Tim.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm done. Don't have anything else to say.
Okay. Are we looking? I believe this will be construction this year.
That's the plan. Won't be until the end, but.
Yeah, understood.
And actually what we'll do is we'll open the shelter up for rental, through like August or September, but then we won't take any rentals after that. Or depending on when they're going to begin construction. We're going to keep it open as long as we can with the rentals.
Tim, do you have what you need for this amendment?
I think
language
just
on that?
The rewording, you guys were going to include the word contingent upon financing to the end of that, or?
Right, so contingent upon
Why
financing.
don't you have Don repeat?
Yeah, if
what
you
he
could
was
just
gonna
repeat
do.
it with
Don.
the new words, that way we can.
Let's see, I think we said we'd amend it to add the lighting and then the wood ceiling in that order, contingent on finance coming through. Now, again, I don't know how we want to word that. If they can come up with one but not the other, that's kind of what our order is. It wasn't all or nothing. It was kind of in that order. If they can come up with
Right.
the lighting, I think we're fine with that.
I agree. In the TID
So that made it
closure
really
funding.
clear for you, Tim.
And do we have an official second on that?
I officially second the motion or the recommendation or amendment as Don said, contingent upon TID closure funding. We would like to add the security lighting in if there's enough money for that. And if there's enough money to add that and the wood ceiling refinish, we would like to add that into this.
Perfect.
Inevitably, the question is going to come, what if we can put like 4,500 in there? Do you want the ceiling without the lights? And the way this amendment reads so far is
No, we would just, I
we can't get the
personally
lighting,
feel
I
like
don't
the
think we'd
lighting
vote for any of
would
them.
be the most important thing.
just so we're all on the same page.
Don, you agree? Dave? Whatever? Okay.
Agree.
Okay, I feel like we've had plenty of discussion. Call the vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Okay, that's unanimous, and I'll go ahead and go. Did you have something to say, Scott?
Nope, I was going to wave goodbye, but I'll wait a second.
Okay. So I'll call the vote on the main motion as amended. All in favor of Resolution R1825 as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 All right, that is unanimous.
Appreciate the discussion, you guys. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
See ya. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, moving on to 5F. I would like to have a motion to approve Resolution R2425 authorizing acceptance of the plow truck equipment bid for 3 plow trucks.
I'll
The
move.
motion, we approve R2425.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Second the motion.
Tim.
3 plow truck chassis were approved and ordered back in 2023, and one of those chassis have been delivered. The other 2 chassis are expected to be delivered spring of 2025. Public Works will need to install the plow, the box, plow wing, salter, and pre-wet system on the trucks as the chassis become available. Advertisements for bids was placed in the Wisconsin State Journal on December 16th, 2024 and January 6th, 2025, and bid documents and specifications were made available on questcdn.com as well as emailed to local vendors. On January 13th, 2025, Public Works received and publicly opened 4 bids, and Monroe Truck was the lowest bid at $146,040 per unit for a total of $438,120 for all 3 units. There are sufficient funds available in CIP number 1040 from the dissolution of the town of Madison to absorb the increase in costs for the plow needed as a result of the addition of the Southdale neighborhood area. Fitchburg Common Council, we're looking for approval on the bid provided by Monroe Truck in the amount of $438,120 for the plow equipment and installation for the 3 chassis. We're also looking for authorization of the mayor to sign the agreement with Monroe Truck in the amount of $438,120 for the plow equipment for the 3 plow trucks. And also looking for authorization of the city administrator to auction or trade the surplus 2008 and 2009 plow trucks after the new units are put into service. And then we're looking to also amend the 2025 capital projects fund budget to increase the budget by $85,000 for the plow for the Southdale neighborhood using funds available in the CIP project.
Take comments from the board members.
Would we need to do this all at once, or do we do it as we get the one chassis we already have, we get it, or would we buy all 3, assuming that the other 2 chassis are coming in shortly?
Yes, we would purchase all 3.
Well, if we didn't, we probably wouldn't get the
Tim,
deal.
when if I recall, we bought the trucks off the state bid. And I don't know if I asked the question then, but I'll ask it now. Any thoughts to either our folks putting them on, or we do a purchase and have Dane County buy the stuff and put them on for us?
Yeah, the city, we don't have the resources to put them on. And the county, I believe at one time did that, but currently aren't putting trucks together for other agencies. They don't have the resources available for that.
So this is for the purchase of the equipment and the installation, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And we're assuming we don't need them yet this year, and that if we don't get them till the spring, they're going to be ready for next year. Is that? It's snowplow stuff, right?
Correct. So we would still keep the replacement trucks that we have right now, and then once the equipment gets installed and we're ready to take delivery, then we would send the replacement truck off to auction.
So what would happen to the money we get from the replacement trucks for the auction?
That goes back into the replacement fund for the snowplow equipment.
Tim, will we get dinged if the remaining trucks get delayed by a year?
Dinged from who?
By this contract, we're saying you're going to install 3 plows on there. If it's going to be a year before we get the final truck, are they going to say, I want 10% more, 20% more?
There is always that possibility. The longer this gets delayed, a price increase could happen. I believe that did happen with the chassis, that we had to do a change order in order to move forward with the purchase of the chassis. But like I said, one chassis is already sitting on the lot ready for the equipment, and then the other 2 chassis are currently being built.
Any other comments? All right, I will take it to a vote. All in favor of resolution R 2425, signify by saying aye.
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 It is unanimous. Moving on to 5G, looking for a motion to approve Resolution R3325, approving engineering services contract for Yarmouth Greenway Stream Bank restoration.
I will move approval of resolution number R33-25.
I'll second it.
Tim.
The Yarmouth Greenway is an intermittent branch of Nine Springs Creek that extends from McKee Road to the Nine Springs Golf Course. Sections of the Yarmouth Greenway exhibit significant stream bank erosion. The TMDL baseline modeling assumes conveyance channels are stable and observed stabilization issues should be corrected. The City of Fitchburg issued an RFQ for engineering services in January 2024. The RFQ was advertised by legal notice in the Wisconsin State Journal on January 22nd and January 29th. Proposals were received from 10 vendors on February 5th, 2024. An engineering services proposal was solicited from Strand Associates Incorporated based on their extensive experience with similar projects and their ability to complete the negotiated scope of work within the allocated budget as assigned in CIP project number 4732. We're looking for approval from council for the award of the engineering services for the Yarmouth Greenway Streambank Stabilization Project to Strand Associates Incorporated in the amount of $59,000.
Questions for Tim? Dave.
Approximately how many? How long is this section? And is the mitigation mostly riprap on the on the shore, on the corners?
Yes, so
or is it something more?
Kind of the project limits, there's about 8 areas and they total about 1,000 linear feet. And then the project would entail some invasive species removal, regrading of the stream bank, and then some riprap installation to prevent the stream bank erosion that we're seeing out there today.
Is any of it in the golf course itself?
I don't believe so.
I believe this is all in. Yeah, I know where it is. I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you.
What do we think the total cost of the remediation is going to be?
I can check the CIP real quick. So construction would be next year. $300,000 we have budgeted.
For construction?
For construction.
And for the people playing along at home, can you just say a few words about a request for quote versus a request for proposal, RFQ versus RFP?
RFQs, a request for qualifications.
Qualifications.
So basically when we put out an RFQ, we're looking for proposals stating the vendor's qualifications for the advertisement that went out. In this particular instance, it was engineering services, so we had received 10 proposals, and it was for our general engineering services. And basically, the vendors submitted their qualifications based on general engineering services and municipal work.
Tim, the magnitude of or the scope of the work is to do the figuring out of what we need, do coordination, and then get an environmental document that you could put it to bid? Is that what's proposed in the scope?
Yeah, the scope of work for Strand would be to perform a survey of the existing grades out there and the project limits, and then from there do a design for the regrading, invasive species removal, and then riprap design work for the project, and then also help us put together the bid documents, and then from point of advertising, we would take over and handle the construction and inspection in-house with our environmental team. And Strand would also help with the permitting, getting it permitted through the agencies.
Tim, this is a pretty developed area there. Is this going to result in much reduction in the total demand? You know, like sometimes a newer area, you'll get a lot of runoff. It's pretty much developed there now. I'm curious what type of reduction we're looking at with this.
I think that's
potentially
as part of Strand's work. That they are going to kind of look into that. There is significant erosion. You can see the banks have a lot of sediment has eroded away from the banks and washed into the stream, and so we suspect that amount to be significant, the reduction.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, I'll go ahead and call.
I think the answer is no, but again, you're looking at just erosion protection, what it got washed away, what you have. Are they going to look at any proposed mitigation for phosphorus loading or anything like that?
No, just the stream bank restoration.
All right, if there's nothing further, I'll go ahead and call the vote. All in favor of resolution R3325, signify by saying aye.
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 Sounds unanimous. Moving on to 5H, our last agenda item here. I'm looking for a motion to approve resolution R3425, amending the 2025 TID number 9 budget for the Lacey Road Roundabout project.
So we approve resolution number R-34-25.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Don can do it.
Tim, tell us what's going on here.
The Lacey Road reconstruction project, the South Seminole Highway to Fitchburg Road portion, was authorized by council with a portion of the project funded through TID number 9. The Public Works Department has determined that the cost to install the electrical service to power the streetlights and RRFBs can be allocated to TID number 9. The overall TID number 9 project plan has sufficient capacity to absorb this additional cost. We're looking for council to amend the 2025 TID number 9 fund budget to increase the Lacey Road Seminole Highway roundabout project by $17,700 using tax increment available within the fund, and then that $17,700 would pay for the MG&E service for the streetlights and RRFBs for the Lacey Road reconstruction project.
Questions for Tim?
Tim, didn't we approve this before? We're just transferring it to the TID fund now?
We had an agenda item.
This before.
We had an agenda item a couple months ago back in 2024. It was the easement needed for this service that kind of went south of Crescent Crossing.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tim, I saw some verbiage in there that says MG&E, the charges may include winter charges. I mean, we've been waiting for this for over a year now. Why, is it just just because we finally got the easement and they're able to move forward?
Yeah, the holdup was the easement document. Ross was coordinating that with MG&E, and it took a while to get that document. I believe he was, checking in with them basically from summer all the way up until when we got it back in October, November. So it was a holdup on drafting that easement with the sketch and legals, and then now once that got recorded, MG&E gives us a price and we're ready to go to construction. I mean, we could wait to get a little, I believe their rates are lower if they don't do it in winter. However, we've been waiting over a year now to get this installed. I don't think there's a big difference between the costs of them doing it in winter versus spring, that it's worthwhile to get it up and functioning.
Yeah, we're lacking daylight now, much more so than later on in the year.
Isn't it an automatic charge, or just if the winter conditions are bad while they're doing it? I mean, because so far this winter's been really pretty mild.
Yeah, I believe they still charge the winter cost.
All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I'll go ahead and call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R3425 signify by saying aye.
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 It is a unanimous vote. All right, moving on. Next item here is 6A, announcements. Our next Board of Public Works meeting will be February 17th. Any other announcements? Anybody?
I guess I would just like to reiterate a comment that was made earlier on some of these items that we had. Just a general site plan, I think, would make it easier for us to look at. We have all the verbiage about all the bids and all the numbers, but a plan, that layout sheet, I think would have helped both for Tower Hill and maybe for the pickleball courts at McGaw, those kinds of things. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be the whole bid documents by any stretch, but just a site plan, to me, would make things clearer. And then it is something we could put up on the screen when we're asking questions, so that anybody from the general public that's watching the FACTv would have a better understanding of where we're talking about.
Yeah, I can relay that to the Parks Department. It was the Parks agenda item, so I'll talk to Scott about that. And
Just like a one sheet, I think would help make things clearer for us, but a lot for the people that are watching on TV. He's talking about, and we get familiar with this because we look at the agenda items and say, okay, yeah, where are those pickle courts in East and West? But somebody from the general public, I think it would be helpful.
Agree. Yeah.
All right, if there's no other announcements, we can move on, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned at 7:12.